will ask me for a recording. So let's just see. Okay. So it's recording. All right. Welcome everyone to July's webinar. This webinar is mostly focused on my curiosity to understand what limits the traction of X-ray deployment with you guys. And the reason for doing that is I want to understand what goes on in your world so we can do whatever we can do to help with that. It also helps us via feedback into the product development cycle as well. So given that, I'm just letting a few others in. Let's get stuck in. So that is item 1 on the agenda. I've got a few questions that I asked in the WhatsApp chat group, and I've also got a few additional ones that came out from the chat. And then part 2, I just want to give you some feedback on where we are with the referral offer. We've done some thinking there, and we're ready to rock and roll with that. So let's get stuck in then and go. The first question I wanted to just discuss, and how's it, Lynn and Heno and Ben? Good to have you on board too.
Hello, guys.
I'm wondering if there are any of you who finds themselves in this situation. I understand the product. I know how it adds value. I know how it'll add value for me. I know how to work with the thing. And I'm engaging with businesses that I know need this product, but I haven't been able to convince them to do anything about it. I just don't seem to get traction for one reason or another. I get battered. I'm talking to people and no one seems to want to take it up. Is anyone battling with that kind of problem? No?
Wayne, can I comment? Should we type?
No, you can comment. You can comment.
Yeah.
They're few enough here that we're going to have a discussion. If there are 100 that descend on us, then maybe I'll get some more discipline into things. But for now, just talk. Yeah.
Yeah, I think just hello everyone. Ben Skuman here. I think I just want to respond. I hate it when I'm in a webinar and I ask questions and no one responds, but I actually have something to share. Wayne, in short, when people don't want it right now, it's often not, in my experience, in our experience, I don't think it's because they don't see the value. I think it's because they're reflecting on, is this priority right now? Now that I see the problem, I'll want to do something about it. Can I then do something? What would that cost me? I think it's a cost estimate, cost challenge normally. That's our experience. And I think it is a great question. How do we circumvent that? How do we go about dealing with that? But yes, it is occurring to us. And I think it is cost sensitivity, or I'm facing enough challenge to to grow my business, to keep surviving. I don't know if I want to know why I'm struggling. I think people really feel a degree of, I've got enough pain, don't increase it. It's better to not know.
You don't want to go to the hospital because they'll find something else wrong with me.
Yeah. It's a fear of what is this going to tell me about how many problems I've got. I don't think people necessarily always have the guts to face that amount of truth.
Yes. And the point you make there is one that resonates, Ben, because I was talking to another coach, actually a guy out of the UK a few weeks back, and he said, I have this problem too, but my interpretation of the problem is that it's an urgency thing. Okay, I know I need to do it, but not now. My house isn't burning down now, and this is not the vitamin that's going to fix it, or it's not the fire engine that's going to put that fire out now. So what he says tends to happen is they just leave it until there's a crisis, until that risk gets too high, and all of a sudden they say, oh goodness me, I need to do something about it. So in his case, what he does is he uses his messaging to just probe and prod to see whether there is urgency there that's being ignored or not head in the sand stuff or not. And if it's not, he just leaves them. Sometimes they've just got to get to the point where there is a crisis, and then they'll reach for it. So in that case, what he does is he just stays in contact with them. He doesn't write them off. He says, hey, these guys will probably need it at some point. I'll just keep touching sides of them from time to time. Does that resonate with you?
Yeah, no, totally.
Yeah.
I can really relate with that as well, definitely.
Okay. I'm just letting a few more people in here. There are quite a few people in the waiting room now. There they come.
Len, is that your experience as well? I'm curious.
Yes and no. I've only really just started pitching the next 9. The kind of clients I've been dealing with up till now have been, I would say, too small to be able to justify the expense. But that said, I've been up my approach. As I'm gaining more confidence as a coach, I'm feeling and understanding the platform better. I'm feeling more and more confident to promote it. It's easier to sell another brand than your own, isn't that funny? But what I found, just from in theory that I understand, is that invariably it works better when the client finds you. If they find you because they're already at a point of making a decision and they're already in crisis mode, that sales cycle is shorter. It's I think the chance of closing, if you're the one who's reached out to an organization, especially if they weren't actively looking for a solution, your chance of closing are quite small. The art is to be at the right place at the right time, of course. But if you do meet them at a point, it is, even though it's reasonably priced for an organization, when you're matching the fit is right, it's still, somebody hasn't had coaching before or had business coaching before, it still seems like a lot of money. It's crazy. So you've got to get people who are, ready. They've got that kind of, not cash flow, but they're at that stage of business, and the business size lends itself to this kind of product. And as I said, they've got to be, I think you've got to try and find them in crisis or close to crisis. So it's about putting the marketing message in the right place at the right time. So that's the...
And when they're in crisis, they often don't have the money to do it. So what I've done in 1 or 2 cases, by the way, is I've subsidized the X-ray. I've reduced my rates for what I'm going to do to support them in order to make sure they actually can do an X-ray. And by the way, that subject of pricing is an ongoing one within Next 9. And what we're doing all the time is iterating the model to see what kinds of numbers can be supported and build a business that gets the attraction. I think I mentioned to you guys, we're looking for an external investor, and there's a few discussions that have been had in the last while, but there's nothing that's been finalized at this stage. But the bottom line is there's a balance there. You don't want a product that is too expensive for anyone to afford. Excuse me, and on the other side is so lowly priced that you can't actually build a sustainable business with it. And as I think I mentioned to you guys last time, the product is actually subsidized to a degree because FNB put in a chunk of money, and that has been used to keep the price lowish as well. But anyway, for the new guys who've joined, and I see there's still a steady stream of people coming in. We're busy talking about the situation where you know how to use the product, but you're battling to get traction with your client. And the general consensus seems to be, we know the product. The problem isn't that we don't know it and we can't pitch it. So we shy away from it. The problem is just on the client side, and there are a range of reasons why that should be as well. Guy? You've got your hand up.
Yeah. So I didn't want to interrupt.
You're very polite.
Just listening to the conversation. I mean, obviously I'm in a slightly different place at the moment because I'm trying to get a coaching business going. So I don't have many clients, and none of my clients are X-ray material at the moment for a variety of reasons, generally sized. However, I kind of understand where you and Ben are coming from in terms of clients who say, look, we don't need to know about more problems now. It's like that doctor analogy you use. You don't want to go for your annual checkup in case he finds something, sort of thing. Is there, drawing further on that analogy, is there maybe an opportunity that packages within the X-ray a number of hours that could be, pick a number, 10 hours drawn down over the year, that when you're ready, you can then utilize those hours with your coach to understand some of the problems. And part of that would be, we'll give you a plan and we'll agree a plan that you can implement according to your needs as and when you're ready. So it's almost a medical aid approach that says you're paying a little bit per month in there, in effect, but you're getting 10 hours worth of, it's your medical savings account, to use Discovery's analogy.
Yeah. So Guy, that is a very interesting thought and a good one. And by the way, I'm coaching a medical doctor who is using an approach like that with basically medical aid for the people who don't have medical aids. Okay, sort of like the next layer down. And she's finding resistance to anything where someone thinks, I won't use that support. Okay. So what she has concluded is you can't do that overtly, because that pushes people away. So she's basically, she keeps that quiet. She just prices it, but she's got it built in.
Yeah.
On the other hand, you guys have the ability to price this product wherever you need. So you can package it with a basket of support if you want to, and you can also choose whether you want to do that overtly or less overtly kind of thing. So again, you guys can choose to do that. We as Nextline are not going to do that because we're staying away from the bundling of the other things. That said, though, we do recognize that the combo of the X-ray and the coach is what makes this thing work. It's not one or the other. The coach needs something like the X-ray, but the X-ray also needs the coach because it's a reasonably complicated product. There are not many SMEs that can actually use the X-ray on its own without the help of a coach. So that's probably something that's actually needed. There's someone who's got noise in the background. If you wouldn't mind muting, if it's you. Jayanta, it's your side, eh? Yeah. Thanks. So Guy, good suggestion, but I would say you go for it and do it yourself rather than us package it on the Nextline side. It becomes too complex with the options that then happen. That said, though, I'm going to talk about that kind of thing in part 2 of today's discussion. Okay, so of the new arrivals on the Guy, you've got to follow.
Yeah, just sort of following on from that. I mean, I've spoken with you before about the lack of, if you like, a sales brochure type of thing for the X-ray, which I think is really important. And I know Lucinda was copied. Lucinda, yeah, was copied on that conversation, but haven't had any feedback whatsoever on it. But assuming that Nextline gets to a point where they're going to produce some sort of a, marketing brochure, it would be handy then to have access to the proofs of it that one could then modify to add in A, your price, and B, any other packaging that you're doing, like the 10 hours of support kind of thing.
Now on that topic, I think you're referring to like a one-pager as a brochure,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Because there is already, as I said to you, the PowerPoint presentation that was intended to serve exactly that purpose, and it's got a place where you can put your pricing, okay,
Yeah,
and
but
your branding.
Too much, you know, people want a one-pager nowadays.
Yeah. Okay, I'll take that back into the system. As you say, Lucinda already has it on her radar screen, but I'll follow up on that. Any of the new people who've joined, I posed the question, do any of you feel like you understand the product, you know how to apply it, you're trying to apply it, but you're battling to get traction with your clients? And do you have any thoughts on why that might be? That's where this first questions discussion was going. Any thoughts or comments from the people who joined after I posed the question? If not, I'll go to the second question that I'm curious about before we open up the floor to anything goes. I think this X-ray is a good thing, but it's a complex tool. And when I look at the recommendations, I get scared because I don't know what to do about a bunch of those recommendations. Like I did my my trial X-ray, and I saw there were a whole bunch of things there about strategy, and I'm not a strategy coach, so I'm scared. So I'm too scared to use this tool at all in case it opens up a door that I can't close again. Anybody's feeling like that? I'll be very glad if the answer is no, by the way. Because I've been sitting there scratching my head as to, you know, why are people battling with traction? Okay, number 3 we've touched on already. Number 4, the winners versus losers thing. In that chat that we had on the WhatsApp group a few weeks back, someone said, listen, maybe you got to choose. The guys that you're battling with are losers. Don't choose losers, choose winners. Go and choose people who can and want to do this thing and pay for it. Any thoughts? Are you guys wrestling with that issue at all? That and someone mentioned it already. It was you, Lynn. You know, a bunch of your clients are just too small to be able to afford it. That's a given. So there's an application where this thing will work, and there are businesses where it just won't work. You won't get traction with it. Anyone wrestling with that question? Winners versus losers? While you're thinking about that, I by the way, I try not to differentiate. And maybe I'm a little altruistic about it, but if there's someone who really needs it and is battling to afford it, well, then I told you what I do. I go and subsidize the rate that I charge at. And there have even been a few instances where I've done the coaching for naught. Oh, that's not a really practical practice. Ben would look at me and say, yes, I owe some money. If you're doing work and you're not charging for it, it depends on where you are in your life, I guess. But the point of the matter is,
or Ben will say, oh, I've done that, been there, done that. That's just not sustainable.
yes. Yeah, don't worry. My wife does my admin and accounting, and she says to me, listen, a little bit of that's okay. Just don't get carried away. Okay. You can't solve the world's problems for free. You got to bring in some money as well. Okay. So basically, the head scratching that I did, and I see there's some messages in the chat box over here. Let me just stick those up here as well. Yeah, it was Lynn. How to shorten the sales cycle. Yeah. Thoughts on that, Lynn? You asked, is that a question that you're asking? How to do it? Or
It's just in response to what an earlier question was about. I think it was Guy saying that from when you put it out there, and the delays saying not ready. I'd already spoken to that. If you catch them at the right time, and there's an answer to that. But
yes,
that just makes the sales cycle shorter.
Okay, and the sales cycle can actually be quite long. I've found with some people, literally, I have given up on them, and like a year later, in fact, I had one today. Like a year later, the person circles back and says, yeah, that x-ray that you told me about, can we do it? I was like, gee, okay, that's nice, but it took you a hell of a long time to get back to me, didn't it? Of course, I didn't verbalize that last piece. No, thank you, well done. No, it's great idea. Let's get it going. So I'm going to open the floor then. What are you finding you battle with in order to get traction? If I were to ask each of you the question, what slows you down? And this is a personal thing. I'm not looking for generic answers here. And I sense that the sum total of them will give us the answer. So maybe what you want to do is either pop your answer in the chat group or just stick your hand up and start talking. Let's get a discussion going on what those things are that slow down traction. And I'm particularly looking for the things that that we can do to help you. Obviously, there are things that you've got to do to help yourself too, but collectively, where we can be smarter about improving traction, we obviously want to do that. So let's hear your thoughts on that. Pete, you looked like you were revving up to make a profound statement there, bud.
Yeah, hardly profound. It's Friday after a busy week. So what's going on in my mind is, what is what's slowing down, what's lack of traction. So maybe I'll just give my personal context to do that. So since I first sort of was exposed, which I think was in March or so, Wayne, I mean, immediately there were 3 companies that came to mind. One of them has signed up, and I had the debrief on Monday. One has come back, says, love the product, but they just don't have the cash yet. And the third one, I made the formal offer to on Wednesday. In fact, formal verbal offer, it's sitting in my outbox to go. And I'm not uncomfortable with that, so I don't consider it particularly slow. That said, though, my practice is not built around the X-ray only. So I've got quite busy on the other side. So if you're looking from the outside in, it can seem slow, but I'm also juggling my own capacity / appetite to take on something which I view as exciting, but I also know there's a fair amount of capital time from my side to really get to know the product better. And I'm comfortable with the clients that I've pitched it to. I've got a good long-standing relationship with. It's open cards, it's a new product for me. So we're walking this journey together. So I'm kind of selective around the clients that I pitch it at until I made more confidence in my ability to use the product in a value-added style for everybody.
Yeah. You made a very interesting point there that resonated with me. You talked about capital time to know the product. And you've come onto the platform fairly recently. Is there enough material there for you to get to know the product quick enough or not? Is the onboarding good enough? Is the material that's there good enough? Is the demo good enough? Anything in that space that we could do to help a new coach get up the curve quicker?
My sort of knee-jerk response is there's almost too much in terms of that. Very thorough, very detailed. So what may be of use for me, it would be a 20/80 approach. I'm very comfortable to go down all of the side tracks, etc. And what you've got is a very logical sequence going through, and I found it very useful. But maybe, as I say, a 20-30 minute high level run, and it may even be in there, but if so, it's lost for me up till now. But just, these are the bare bones. This stuff exists. If I know where it exists, then I can go and look for it. I'm still finding the navigation around the resources, not the resources around the academy, a bit clunky, but I acknowledge I haven't spent enough time in there. So I was looking for something the other day and I just couldn't find it. And I think you mentioned it last time on the call that there was a strategy boot camp and a culture boot camp. And, you know, those names resonated, but I couldn't find either of them. And I'm sure they're there.
They are there. Go look in the courses piece. Don't look in the resources piece. Look in the courses on the courses tab. They're there.
Okay.
Yeah, and the academy, I think.
Yeah, they don't use the
Yes.
word boot camp in them though. It's
They
10x
use the-
strategy, next culture.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
So maybe some form of tagging,
Yes.
because I was
Yes.
academy, but I was looking for boot camp because that was
Yes.
what.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, and that's fair enough, because I use the term boot camp, and we always use the term boot camp, but in the academy they're not called boot camps, they're called courses. Okay, cool. Anybody else? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Yes, please, Lynn. And Donovan after that.
my camera moved over as I couldn't find the button. Okay, so I tend to must say I do agree with Pete there about that there's almost too much, which is catch-22, because you think, wow, there's so much to offer, but by the same token, it's so much to get through to build an element of confidence and competence. So I've got two questions based on that. Well, one suggestion is to maybe have a document for the coaches or resellers to say, look, if you're learning the material, and I think it's what Pete was saying also about the 80-20, if you're learning the material, start here. You need to at least get a grasp on this course and that course and those 5 modules, and almost like in an order of priorities. If you've got time space of half an hour and here, an hour there, 2 hours, that you know how to allocate that. You know where to start, because at the moment it's like a big sphere. You don't know where to start. And when you click on something, you think this sounds like a good start. When you open it up and you realize it's like actually 8 hours worth of stuff to contain. Another thing I would suggest is maybe putting a total time commitment visible on each module. So you know this is going to be half an hour, this is going to be 8 hours, this, because it's only when you're in it, and I'm sorry, but OCD, when I start a thing, I have to finish it. So I can't, if I open a course and I'm like, start of the first video and I realize this is going to be a 2-day exercise over time, I'll push through, because, and also the value is there. I can see that the material is really valuable, but where you're trying to focus and prioritize your time available to get to market as quickly as possible, that will help.
Okay. So we can get a coach there quicker by giving you the one page that says, listen, yes, here is the shortcut to getting onboarded.
The essential first things. This is the most valuable use of your time in the beginning.
Okay.
And then on that note, what I would also suggest is an element that just struck me, is that I remember the first time you reached out to me on LinkedIn and the first session we had, it was really effective. You're a good salesman. So, but I realized actually that there's almost you almost want to be able to scale that. And I'm thinking there's nothing to stop me from going to promote Next 9 on LinkedIn myself. But right now I'm not confident enough. But I'm wondering if there isn't something that we could do. We say, okay, this is how, if you're going to promote Next 9 on LinkedIn, this is a good way to approach it. I could copy your script and put my voice to it. But again, if somebody says yes, what is a good way? What is a really practical sales funnel? You hook them into a first meeting, you follow up, then it really would help if we could stand on your shoulders and not feel like, well, I feel like I'm reinventing the wheel, which is probably totally unnecessary and nobody wins. So there's another suggestion. If you could almost like, in a way, I'm saying in this instance, I'd be willing to be a sales rep and a coach, but I'm not getting there because partly I'm still learning the material, but also I'm partly thinking, well, to pitch a whole different thing when I'm still pitching myself. But I can see it working.
I think the answer to that isn't, if you think about it, the X-ray isn't the destination in its own right. The X-ray is actually the tool that helps you help them solve their problems, if you follow my logic. But you're right.
I meant the whole.
Yeah. No, and but I do get you in your bouquet of products. There's an X9 line, and to be able to properly articulate that piece, you would find useful. There is a sales deck in the resource center, but it's like Guy was saying, it's probably too much. So what the message I'm getting here quite strongly is, be careful. Too much doesn't help either. There probably need to be layers. So there's like a one pager, and then there's a one paragraph descriptor, that kind of thing. What you might want to do, by the way, and now might be a little early to do it. What we're doing is we're reworking our website. And while we're doing that, we're thinking about the wording as well. So I've made a note here. We could equip you guys with how to market this as part of your suite of products as well. Good idea. Is that you, Lynn? Donovan, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I'm done.
Thanks, Lynn.
Hi, good afternoon to everyone. Thank you, Wayne. I've got more a comment rather than a question that I would like
Sure.
to share this afternoon. I tend to approach and look at the X-ray more from the perspective of the business life cycle. Because throughout the business life cycles, there is different chapters or phases of the business, requiring different sorts of types of interventions. But ultimately, it needs to lead to help creating and building a sustainable business. So from that perspective, and the first couple of rounds of presenting the X-ray to clients and prospective businesses, that I think it can be of value. It was quite interesting, the observation and feedback. So my conclusion is that you really need to be a serious business owner and an existing business in order to see the value the X-ray can contribute to your business. That's the first point of departure. I'm thinking in terms of the smaller, the micro, the startup businesses. I do agree with what you said earlier, that the extent of the complexity in the program or the app, it is relevant. How can you sort of split, in terms of their functionality in the tool, these startup micro businesses that won't necessarily go through all of those steps and areas of the tool, especially being a smaller startup micro-sized business, separate to that of an existing, like I said, the serious business owner. I'm not saying a startup in a smaller business is not serious, but that is just my observation thus far of the X-ray.
That's
That
a
is
good point, Donovan. That's a very good point you make. But someone else made that point to me as well. And the way this person made the point to me was, Wayne, it says to me, I must go fix my strategy. Okay. My strategy is okay for me for now. I know it's got weak links. I know I've got a poor score there, but if I don't sell, I won't be here to fix that problem. So for me, something else might be more important. So what he said was, at different stages of a life cycle of a company, what's important might vary. So in his situation, what he was hinting at was, I need the ability to acknowledge that this recommendation is a good one, but I'm not going to do it now. I'm going to do it later. And can you just like gray it out and the next one can pop in? Okay. So basically what he was saying to me in simple terms was, how can I just park the strategy stuff and work on the rest of the stuff? And I've fed that feedback back into the product system already as well. if you're a purist, I'll be with you right now, Pete. If you're a purist, you would argue against that, okay? Because you would say, listen, buddy, you actually need to fix those things because the work you're doing on those other areas actually depends on it. And in this particular guy's case, his sales messaging and his marketing strategy depend on answering the questions that he's avoiding. So it's a problem. But not everyone sees it the same way. So, and that's part of this thing. Sometimes what you're doing is you're working with guys who are fixated on their immediate pain rather than standing back and listening to what the X-ray is saying to you and thinking about whether is that not something that's more important. So that's just a thought I'd leave you with, but good comments, Donovan, and they resonate with others too. Pete, you're going to respond? You muted, bud.
Sorry, just building on that, this client I debriefed on Monday, we had a very similar thing. The gut feel for the strategy was good. The real strategy diagnosed had a whole lot, but their problem at the moment is they're not implementing anything. So we agreed we would take their current strategy, imperfect though it is, and
yes.
accelerate so I just changed the order of the there rather than graying it out, knowing it will come back. But it doesn't matter how good the strategy at the moment, because if they're not implementing anything, they ain't going to go nowhere.
Okay, so that's a good point too. You as the coach do have the capability to reprioritize. It's not an unlimited one, though. I've found there have been times where I've tried to do that, and it's not unlimited. And you talked about execution there, Pete. So we've had quite a lot of feedback. And remember, at the moment, I think I mentioned to you guys before, we're running 2 pilots at the moment. It's about gamification of business building. Think Strava for business building. And they're two cohorts. They're about 2 months apart on a one-year pilot. And the feedback coming from there is that we should probably not lead with the X-ray. We should probably lead with helping people execute. And the X-ray is the tool that helps you do that. So follow my logic for a second. What we're doing is we're teaching them rhythms. Daily number 1, weekly promises, monthly review, quarterly review. Okay. But then once you get those rhythms up and going, now you've got to make sure that you're doing the right thing. So only after that do they feel ready to now, I start out working on the obvious, but then I get to a point where I say, okay, so now I've got these rhythms, and now I want to make sure that I'm working on the right things. So how does your OKR planning go? So then that plugs in next. And now I've got a set of OKRs. Oh, have I got the right things in my OKRs? Now we get into the strategy. So instead of starting with strategy, which for some businesses, it's like sends them screaming into the night, even though we know that that's the right place to start. For some users, it's not the right place to start because it turns them off altogether. So what we're thinking of, and we're busy getting our head together around this, basically we give people options. So we put execution up front, and we've got the X-ray, but they make choices about which pieces they use. It's sort of like Pete's saying over there. It gives you more choice, and you can then fine tune it with your clients too. Now, in order to do this, there's quite a pivot on the development side that's got to happen. Okay, so this thing's causing palpitations, but there's a recognition that it's probably the right thing to do, and it's come through very strongly from the pilots. So it's very likely that we're going to actually do that. But so what will happen in due course is it'll come through in the feature upgrades. Okay, so we don't have to fuss about that now, but that's just for your information that's where it's likely to go. And those pilots are going so well that it's a no-brainer that those features are going to get built into the X-ray. Absolutely crystal clear. The feedback is really, really very, very positive about that. Pete, and then Brad.
If you could just repeat what you said after rhythms, there was something about the wording there that really tickled me, but I can't. You said daily something, weekly something, monthly and quarterly.
Well, the way the rhythms work is, I'll do it in reverse, and then you'll understand how it builds up from the top, from the bottom. You do your strategy work to clarify your strategy. Then you turn it into an execution plan annually, annual rhythm, business plan, budgets, all of that kind of stuff. Design the organization, get going. Then you divide it into quarterly chunks. So this is basically it's OKR methodology. At the end of the quarter, this is where I actually, I'm just letting a couple of people in here. So at the end of each quarter, then you do a quarterly review. So I've broken out the first quarter's work, and I do a review at the end of the quarter to make sure that I've done what I said I'm going to do. Then on a monthly basis, as part of your management meeting, you just add a section at the back on strategy. Are any of these initiatives of ours to get to our quarterly goal in trouble? And you only do it by difference. So you don't talk through everything. That's the pitfall people have. They review everything, whereas what you should be doing in those meetings is reviewing by difference. And there should be some variance analysis that's done up front too. That's the monthly piece. But now the real goal is the weekly meeting. So now each week, everybody in that top team makes 3 promises. And we talk about them in a weekly commitment meeting. I used to call them the 3 promises meeting. I've been doing this for like 20 years. So you just say, these are the 3 things I'm going to be doing this week to get us to the end of the quarter with our OKRs met. And then next week, I said I was going to do these 3 things last week. Here's how I've done on them. Here's my 3 for the next week. So basically, we hold each other accountable to take the baby steps that get us to the end of the quarter. And then within the week, you should have a daily number 1. In order to deliver those 3 promises, you should know when you're going to do them. Simply put, you should go and make time blocks in your calendar to work on those things. And each day, there's something that's the most important thing for you to go and deliver on in order to get there. Okay. So basically, then it works. And this is what we've done with a pilot. We started them, just teach them the daily number 1, and we use a WhatsApp group to do that. Okay. Every day, daily number 1, and you review one of your peers' promises to make sure it's smart, and you basically get the daily thing going. Then we get them going with the weekly commitment meeting. And now we're at the stage where we're working OKRs with them. So that's the story there. And now I've lost track. Where is Brad? Oh, there's Brad. Brad, you had your hand up, you were next. And then it was Hanno after that.
Thanks, Wayne. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, great. Yeah, I just wanted to comment in terms of where I am on my journey and the use of the product. I haven't. Well, first of all, I want to say it's an excellent product in terms of content, right? And so I definitely get it. I am, because I'm new to it, and some of my existing clients, some of them are not, at the point where they need to have their whole strategy reviewed, and in terms of filling it out, because they're quite mature business. Okay, but I am awaiting feedback from one of my clients, because I promised, he's promised me that he wants to use it, and it will be a relatively safe environment because I know him, and then I could basically experiment with that. So that's just where I am personally. But I wanted to comment that if you look at, in my experience, I focus on the manufacturing sector, and my clients are really, plus 100 million rand. And the reason I got there is the fact that, and I think this is where many coaches and business consultants, battle with, is that when you're dealing with startups, in my experience, there's a strong need for this support, and I think the product is excellent for startup young micro companies, right? Because you can really use the tools and guide it. But of course, I think the challenge that one faces is that they cannot afford it. It's a catch-22. But here's a comment, and I'm wanting to propose and say, if we believe the product is really good, imagine we could get a corporate sponsor, and corporate sponsor could be a bank, corporate sponsor, that you say, guys, here's 5 million rand, which is not a lot of money in the bigger scheme of things in the corporate sponsors. And here's a fantastic product, right? That we would offer startup businesses, and it will be inverted commas free or highly subsidized for startups. And then as coaches, you know, you have a pool of coaches that could obviously then coach those individual businesses. Just thoughts on that. Have you guys considered that approach?
Yeah, we have, and we do. Okay, so we have corporate sponsors who sponsor programs. The X-ray gets used in it, and there's a coach that's associated with it. That's probably a good point for me to just say to you guys. Remember the opt-in thing that I discussed with you a few months back? We're all aligned on that now, so we're going to implement it just like that. I'm going to be sending you all an email saying, remember, this is how we said it was going to work, who's keen, who's not. So that's layer one. Layer two, we are starting to see that SMEs who don't have a coach come along and they do the X-ray. We allocate a coach, basically someone to administrate it, and we don't do any coaching on it. But they are now starting to ask for additional support. So we think it's time to think about connect to a coach. Remember, I talked about that ecosystem a little while back, where on their dashboard, they'll have a button. They can just say, hey, I need some help. They'll get a quick form to fill in. That form will come to me to start with. And then I'm going to, depending on what's in there, I am going to use the same kind of approach as the opt-in approach. And where there are people who are specialists in certain areas, and I know what some of you specialize in, but I'm going to actually ask you again, do you want to be part of that too? So you could say to me, for example, hey, Wayne, if there's a tax problem, that's me. You know, I've asked you about debrief, but there are other things too. So I will interact with you, and I'll send you guys an email about that, and you can share your thoughts with me. And it might be something that we explore in a follow-up webinar. In fact, it probably will be. But we're thinking it's time to do that. And right now, I actually asked for it, and because it can be dev light, all we need on the platform is a button, and the rest I can sort out after that. So that's what's coming. So Brad, is that you?
Yeah.
Thank you. So we do that. We do run programs. Heno, you are next.
Thanks, Wayne. I just wanted to add, I think in terms of once the client bought the Next9 product from us, then we start with them, give them a program of what to watch according to the X-ray, almost like watch this course first, then this one, then this one. What I found, what they struggle with is actually maybe a stupid thing, but 3 clients have mentioned it, and they would love like a mobile app or a low data version video that they can access on the go, because the only time CEOs have to watch the videos are when they're on the road or whatever. So I don't know if there's an option to maybe incorporate that into the possibilities. So that's the one point, and the other one was that I don't know how implement the recommendations. So I'm scared to use the X-ray, that one point that you've listed there on the screen. I was actually the other day I listened through one of the webinars, and thereafter I felt like the fear left me, because I know actually the content of the workshop. So when you go through the webinar yourself, the fear actually goes away. And then as I listen to the webinar, I formulate questions I want to ask my clients, because usually they come into the meeting cold, they didn't do anything, and then I need to coach them. So then I actually ask them questions from the webinar, and then they are re-motivated to actually go and listen to the recordings, because they can't really answer the questions I've asked from the webinars, which was pretty a nice way of getting them to actually see the value in listening to the webinars. And one thing I also found maybe that I struggle with is if I don't have a coaching session with the client, then I can't really see their progress. I don't know if there is that functionality where I can go and look at how far are they with the certain webinar that they should be watching, and then I can follow up with them, and maybe with a WhatsApp. I see you on 20%. Remember, we're meeting in 2 weeks' time. Then you should be on 40%. Then we can chat. I don't know if that's a potential for future.
Yeah.
I know I'm mentioning a lot of things, but the other one was the other day. The one client said Next9 is actually a bargain, because if he divides the Next9 subscription by 10, which is the amount of people that can go on the platform, it's actually a very cheap personal development path for his staff.
Yes.
So yeah, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, no, that's a good comment, and it's been made by others too.
Cool.
But the reality is, it doesn't matter what the number is. There's someone who can't afford it, and there's some who can. So just touching on a few of those things there. I loved your comment about the coach learning. And maybe what we can do, you know, we talked about Lynn's one page of prioritizing. Maybe what we should be doing is emphasizing, hey, you should go and do some learning. Because a bunch of coaches have said to me, it's been wonderful for them because it's helped their knowledge. And there are quite a few who've said, I can now coach in areas that I didn't coach before because I've accessed the material. Okay, so that's great. The mobile version, it has been asked for. It's on the development list. Okay,
cool.
So that's coming. Being able to monitor webinar progress, and basically the course process progress, the boot camps and the like. That has also been asked for. It's also on the development list as well. The reality, though, you know, is we put things on the devs. I cause a serious stress for old Siam, because he can't keep up with me. I put things on the list faster than he can take them off. So that's the reality. So there's a product review meeting that happens quarterly, where they decide what's going to happen. I'm part of that, but it's a strategic decision on what comes next. So great points you've made there. Awesome. Guy, you've been very patient there, Guy, sitting there with your hand up. Your arm must be sore by now.
Thank heavens for bits and bytes. Just a couple of things. I put a couple of questions and suggestions in the chat. So I think something that'd be handy is to understand who the ideal customer, you know, your ideal customer avatar, if you like, for the X-ray. What do they look like? Because that'll also help us when we're talking to people. You know, is it best for a startup? Is it best for a mid-sized company? Are there different flavors of it for different companies? Well, there aren't, because it's one X-ray, but should there be different flavors perhaps? And then drawing on what Pete said, which was an observation that I made, you know, maybe breaking the training stuff down and having the, you know, by each of the 8 segments of the X-ray, having a quick overview. So you can say, well, I kind of understand strategy, but I don't get culture, or whatever it is. So you get the 30 minutes on each of the 8 sections, and then you can delve into areas of it more deeply if you feel the need, or if you say, no, this is all I need, and I know somebody I can bring in to do that bit if I need to, kind of thing. So is that knowledge? Is that understanding what good looks like for each of the 8 sections? Yeah. Okay. And then also, I noticed that there is the freemium version of the X-ray, which actually might be quite interesting to, you know, for each of us to go through for our own business, just to understand the process and the questions asked and stuff. But also for customers, I saw, because I just went in and clicked the button to register, and the first thing is set up a 30-minute call with you, which, apart from the fact that I'm guessing that if there are far too many people who suddenly get all excited about the idea of X-ray, you're never going to get anything done, because you're going to be on all these free 30-minute calls. Is there not a way that for the premium version, there isn't a 30-minute call? I can understand maybe having one for getting into the more detailed call, or maybe it's 15 minutes, not 30. But that, I imagine, might put people off, saying, I can't spend 30 minutes on a sales call for this. It's a freemium thing. Let me just sign up, give my name, my detail, my inside leg measurement, whatever else you're asking for, and run it and see what happens.
Okay, cool. Let me before I forget your questions, let me answer them one by one, kind of thing here. The ideal X-ray customer, okay, it's someone who has product market fit and is now scaling. Okay, so I'm not sitting there iterating and experimenting. I now want to grow, and now I've got to start building. Think of building a business as a pile of best practices, and you've got to start building them one by one. The X-ray helps you work out what order to build them into. When you've got most of that stuff built, you could argue that it's less valuable. And that's where Brad was coming from. If you're a big business, they've got all these things in place already. By the way, I've done it on a few bigger businesses and got some surprises, but that's—
I was going to say, I've been in some big businesses and I know a lot of stuff that's missing. I just go to the board meetings and I see that.
Yes, exactly. So basically it's that life cycle stage. It's not about size, because the size varies a lot, but generally they've got a bunch of employees now. They've got a good few managers. It's not a one-man band anymore. And now I'm building all of these functions. That's the best one. You asked about how much time people should spend on Next9, on versus in.
Well, that was Lynn asking that question.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was Lynn asked that question.
Sorry, Lynn. Yes, it was Lynn. Yeah. The good looks like half and half. It never gets there. In my book, if you can get to 80-20 or 75-25, 25% working on, I think you've done well, is my experience. Because the fires just consume that time. And Guy, coming back to your question about the freemium. The freemium version is just intended to expose people to the X-ray. So we expose them to the execution piece only. So what happens is you do the execution X-ray, you get the execution, the feed back for the execution piece, and you've got access to the execution stuff in the academy. At that point, now you've done that. Now what? So now if you want to do the next thing, you say, well, I want to upgrade. Boom, press a button. That's where the 30-minute thing comes in with me. Then someone then talks to me, and that at that point, then I just fill in any gaps that they have about understanding what the X-ray is and does, and they make a call on whether to do it or not. To be honest, that whole freemium thing on the website is a pain in the butt, because there are more coaches that press that button than SMEs at the end. I think it's a bloody nuisance, but anyway.
Yeah, but it did ask me to set up an appointment with you when I pushed that button.
Yeah,
and
but
that's
you
for the
didn't.
Premium.
I'm very disappointed that you didn't set up an appointment with me, Guy. Lies. Don't. I don't want to talk to you. I talk to you far too much.
Wayne, if I can just also mention there on the freemium version. So if I wanted to the other day send out like a newsletter as like a campaign to previous clients.
Yes.
Then I wanted to insert the freemium link. But then when they click on that link, how do I access them again and know that they've actually signed up for that freemium? I don't know if that they will always go to you. Is that an option?
I will be you need admin access to be able to see that. So maybe what you do when you do that, if you wanted to, you could ask me, listen, to have any of these signed up.
Okay, cool.
I'm not, that sounds like I'm looking for a big pen in the side of the head, but that's probably the only practical way to do it right now.
Okay, cool.
Okay,
Perfect.
guys, it's 2 minutes past 2, and I'm religious about not stealing your time. This has been a fascinating discussion. I have got 2 pages of notes that I will take back into the system and chew on. So thank you for that. And by the way, that WhatsApp group, if something thought occurs to you, just chuck it in there. We are receptive to hearing what will help you. Okay. So
awesome.
On that note, then we'll park it there until next month. Thanks for that, guys.
Thanks so much, guys.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Cheers.
Thanks, Wayne. Thanks, everyone.
Okay.